a review of the new release features we have coming out tomorrow. The release will be coming out around 11 o'clock Pacific time with these new features, and of course you will need to download the latest room key version on all your terminals at your properties. So we're going to start with the changes that we made to the ERES online booking engine. So here is the current view when doing a search. Excuse me. And I have this up on the screen for a bit, so let's reset here. So currently when we go into the search, we're going to see the room type here, and down below we have the show details. If I click on show details, it first displays the rate and cancellation policy, which of course is important information, but to get to the room details, we're now two or three clicks in before we get to that room description, what we want them to see to sell that room type. So the change we made, if I go to our new reservation screen, I'll go back to the search here and click search. So the change that we made was the show details is no longer hidden below the picture here. It's going to be right on the screen, and we're actually starting with the room details. We've had a lot of requests from a lot of properties saying that the most important thing to them is to explain, to talk about the room and what's included in the room. When you click on the show details button, it then expands that down, and it brings me to the rate and cancellation policy. And if you also have a rate plan description, that will then show up at the end. So we're just making it more obvious for the end user to find those room descriptions and making it less clicks that they can get in and see this. Okay, so this will be something new that we're putting out with tomorrow's release. Okay, so let's switch over to room key side. So you're going to see the screen go back to the meeting screen just for a moment. And we'll switch over to room key. Now, just so you know, the speed of the room key that you're going to see today will be quite a bit slower as I am remoted into our test server in Vancouver. So it will be running quite a bit slower than you will see on the normal production side. Okay, so let's go with the first big thing that we did. Under operations, we're going to go to the housekeeping module. As this loads, that actually wasn't too bad. Okay, so quite a bit different of a view. The first thing you'll notice here on the left-hand side is we put the little stoplights in that we have on the new res screen. So red light being that the room is currently dirty, the green light being that the room is clean and inspected, and the yellow light being that the room is clean but not inspected. We see these stoplights when you're making a new reservation and assigning the room number or doing a walk-in and seeing the room number. These are the colors of the lights, just giving you the status of the room at a glance. These will, of course, update. So notice as I'm on room 112, it's currently yellow. If I click the inspected box, notice that that turns green. And then same thing with a occupied room. If I flip it clean, inspected, notice as I'm clicking clean turns yellow, inspected turns green. Okay, and then we would click post to update the status of the room. So that's the first change that we made here. You'll also notice over on the right-hand side, excuse me, sorry about that, everyone. We've included some of the areas. Now, if this looks familiar to you, the room status, the activity, and the end-of-day projections, this is because you've seen this from our property dashboard. So if you go to Operations, Property Dashboard, the shortcut key for that is F1. This is pretty much the same view that we have in that area. The change that we made here actually is in the Property Dashboard, we have dirty and we have clean. We've added the third level of clean and inspected here. And as you update these, so as I'm changing them to dirty over here, you'll notice that it doesn't update right away, but as soon as I click post on the status of the rooms, then our totals are going to update in the upper right-hand corner. You're also going to see that the activity shows you yesterday's date and today's date. We put in what was most relevant to what the housekeepers would be looking at. They, of course, want to know how many rooms were occupied last night, the guest count and whatnot, and then how many rooms departed and arrived yesterday. And then today, of course, the main factor is how many stayovers, departures and arrivals we have for that day. They can even click on the little blue drop-down, just like we have over in the property dashboard area. That will show you names and the length of stay, the adults and whatnot. Okay, the end-of-day projections. So when looking at end-of-day projections, we're of course talking about the 13th, the 12th being yesterday. These would be end-of-day actual numbers that we had. Okay, so we're always going to be seeing yesterday and today for activity and end-of-day projections. In the middle, these are all notes that all buttons that we've had before. Please note that we have moved some buttons around. The room number used to be up top. All the buttons are still there. They're just put into the sections where they made more sense. We also updated the labels here. For instance, Bryn T, it never used to say clerk. Last changes never used to be there. So we just put in a couple of labels that were just missing from before. The last change that we made to the housekeeping module is under the reports area, we've now included the availability detail report. Now this report can also be found under reports forecast availability detail. We find this to be the best report to look at. So say I looked at the next 2 weeks. Excuse me again. Okay, sorry about that. This is the best report to look at for housekeeping, as it does show the arrivals, the stayovers, and departures for the coming week. So as we're looking at how many housekeepers we need on a given day. Now the one thing I do want to point out here is we have block total and we have block pickup. It's the same as before, but what we want to be careful of is if we see that we have block but we don't have them picked up, these 10 rooms that are in block total will not be included in your arrivals, stayovers, and departures. And the reason is room key doesn't know when it sees 10 rooms in block for all 4 days, it doesn't know, is this 4 different groups? Is this 2 different groups? Or is this 1 group? So it could be that all 10 rooms are arriving this day, all 10 rooms are leaving on the 17th. Or it could be that it's 10 in, 10 out, 10 in, 10 out. So with block, we can't predict what the arrivals, stayovers, departures are going to be. Now granted, most hotels have either a 30-day cutoff or a 14-day cutoff with groups, so that we usually have the rooming list in or the individual pickup groups. They're all going to have a cutoff of 30 days. So when we're looking at a 2 weeks out schedule, all blocks should be picked up by that time, but it's just something you want to keep an eye on in case there's a last-minute rooming list that we're waiting on that didn't go in. Okay, so that was the activity detail report. Again, under reports, activity detail. Just going to help with forecasting how many room attendants we need at any given time. Okay, and the rest of the functionality is the same. So this is more so giving more information to your housekeeping team all in one area is what we set out to do. Okay, so let's close it here. Next, we're going to go to our report forecast, Augmentation revenue forecast, transient versus group. So this is one of our new reports, and I'm going to show you the report, and I'm going to talk about the report in comparison to the other reports we have and say, well, why is this one different? So it's quite a large report. What we have on here is our transient business broken out from our group business, broken out from our wholesale business. Now, if your property does not do any wholesale block, you have no wholesalers in the system, you're actually going to see this column drop off, and you're only going to see group and transient on here and total. So this report is really trying to break out the group business that you're forecasting on and the transient business that you're forecasting on. And in here, you are going to see, we're going to show the total block, but then we're only going to show the rooms that are, we're also going to show the rooms that are picked up within that block. Okay, so if we see a day like this where we have 10 rooms still in block, but 0 are picked up, we may or may not count that full block in our forecast, knowing that we're at May 7th. Are we going to pick up those rooms? So we're probably going to do more investigation. We're going to go look at our GRC, our group rooms control. We're going to see the groups that are coming in May and see if we have any history on those groups. Are they going to produce the 10 rooms that they promised they would produce? Any days that we have the full pickup picked up, like this day in group, we feel confident in that because now we've had the actual reservations in. We're not as worried about those reservations. Excuse me. Now, if I go back to reports forecasts, you'll see we have the regular occupancy and revenue forecast and the occupancy and revenue forecast transient versus group that I just showed you. So let's go back to the regular occupancy and revenue forecast. I'm going to run this for May. I just want to talk about the difference with this group, or with this report rather. So this report here, it also has transient business over here on the left-hand side. And then we have occupancy and revenue including block. So the thing that happens here is whenever a room is picked up on the right-hand side under group, it actually gets put over to the left-hand side with our regular arrivals, departures, and stayovers. So what we lose is once all the rooms are picked up from the group block, we no longer can distinguish how much business is transient business and how much business is group business that is coming in. So this was certainly a good report because it would show you any rooms left in block. And again, the same idea would go that if you had rooms in block, you may not count all of them based on the history of that group or from the past. But this report, the brand new report, it keeps that group block separate even when the group rooms are picked up. Now this occupancy and revenue forecast transient versus group, its sister or brother report is under statistics, occupancy and revenue actual transient versus group. This report we actually put out last release. So any days going back, so yesterday and further back, you would run this report. And then moving forward, including today, because today would still be a forecast while you're in today, would be occupancy and revenue forecast transient versus group. Okay, the next is a change to a report that we made. And it is, how do we track what our sales managers are doing? So the first thing we have is not all the hotels are going to use this feature. So we actually have a permission that you'll need to give. And that's going to be under System Configuration, Property. It's going to be an overall property permission. So if I go to the Permissions tab, now I've already given myself this permission, obviously. For all of you who don't have this yet, when you download the new version, on the available side under Operations is where you're going to find this. So I'll go over to where I've already attached it. And the permission is 2060, Track Sales Manager for Corporate Accounts. So I'm going to remove this just for a moment. So if I want to give that, I basically click on the permission on the right-hand side, click Select. That will send it over to the left, and I click Post. So now we have the ability to track sales managers on corporate accounts. So once we have the permission, next thing would be to go into System Configuration, Clerks. And the change that we made for the clerk area, you'll see is Sales Manager checkbox. So let me go to someone, Jeff J. here. If I modify that clerk and click on Is Sales Manager and click Post. Okay, because not all the clerks that you have in the system will obviously be sales managers, so you want to tick off the ones that are your sales managers so that they'll show up in the corporate area. So now that I've set a couple of those, we're going to close out of this area, and we're going to go into the corporate area. Under Operations, Corporate, here I have all my companies, and let me find one. So All's Well here, you'll notice the new field here Sales Manager. I'm going to modify on the right-hand side. When I click on the drop-down, only the clerks that I have ticked off is Sales Manager is going to show up on this screen. So there's Jeff J, the one I just chose, and we're going to click Post. Now, I can attach multiple. So see here I have Astra. Bryn T has Astra. He also has NMAX. Sally W has Emmermill. And you can leave some blank as well. They will still show up on the report as blank Sales Manager, basically. Most of you will probably end up having all accounts assigned to some Sales Manager. Okay, so once I have those all assigned, the report that we modified was under Reports, Statistics, Corporate Statistics by date range. So now when I go to print this report, we have three different options. We have summary total, sales agent commission sheet, and by sales agent. Now this first one, I'm going to run for April 1st to April 7th. The summary total is how the report exists right now. So basically, we're not filtering by any sales agent. We just want to see overall our companies during that date range of April 1st, April 7th, who had production. Now I'm going to show this report because we did make one additional change to this report that we noticed was missing from before. And that is this report actually never used to total down at the bottom. So the revenue is going to total of all our companies. The nights is going to total. The average daily rate is actually going to be a formula of the total revenue divided by the total number of nights. And the length of stay is going to be an average of all the length of stays from all our companies during that period. Okay, so this report is exactly the way it is now, except for we've added the totals. The next option we have was to run the sales agent commission sheet. And what this is going to do is, excuse me, it's going to take each sales agent and give them their own page. So here's Bryn T. He has Astra. He has NMAX. If I go to page 2, Jeff J has Allswell. Sally W has Hammermill and Weyerhaeuser. And that's actually it. Now, just as a side note here, the first one that will come up in the list is any that you don't have assigned. So I did that in testing, having no sales manager assigned, and that will show up first in the list with no name. So just know that that shows up first. But again, I think most of you will assign a sales manager to each one. And then again, each page subtotals, so we know a total for each sales manager, what they've done. And then on the last page, we get the report total of what everyone has done. And then finally, the last way that we can run this is by sales agent. If I specifically want to know, what one sales agent did, I can click on the drop and say, okay, I just want to see for Bryn. Now I can see the total here. So up top, sales agent, Bryn T, and all his companies and his totals. Okay, so that's for the sales manager tracking. So again, if you're interested in that feature, you want to be sure to give yourselves the permission. And just so you know, tomorrow at around 11 when we're doing the release, we'll be sending out the release notes that has the step-by-step of what you would need to do to attach that permission and set up each clerk and how to attach it to a corporate as well. So not to worry if you're not getting all the steps today. Next is, this is a small change we made, but it's quite nice. I'm going to go to Mark Hamill here, and we're going to change the stay. I'm going to go to guest info, and we're going to update the guest profile in here. So if I say I were to add a address, and I click OK, we've updated the messaging here. And for those of you who have been on this system for quite a while, we will totally admit that the question was very confusing the way it was asking you. I believe it was, do you want to update the profile? And if you click OK, it would. And if you click Cancel, it would create a new profile, but it wasn't obvious that it was doing a profile. It wasn't very obvious, the wording anyways, the OK and the cancel, the way we had it in there. So we've made it very clear for your agents. If they update the existing guest profile, it's going to update Mark Hamill's profile and any reservations that he has. Create new guest profile will, of course, create a new guest profile. We also want to step further with the update existing guest profile. Just like when we're updating a guest profile in the guest profile area, Roomkey will then give you the warning, guest record has been changed. Making this change will affect all reservations and invoices linked with this guest profile. Are you sure you wish to submit these changes? So just like when we make the change over in the guest profile area, so let's go over there now. If I go to Operations, Guest Profile, I'm going to edit the guest again. Again, we can see the address we just put in. So let's throw in a zip code here. We're going to save, so we're modifying this guest profile. And here's the message we get once again. Guest record has been changed. Making this change will affect all reservations and invoices linked with this guest profile. So I'll click yes. And if I go it, I now have the address change. Okay, so we just made it more fluid, more easier to understand than the way we had the question before. Next change we made, this is a very nice one, long time coming, admittedly here. Again, for those of you who have been using this system a long time, you'll probably know this. For John Wick here, John is checking out on the 15th in a few days. If I go into Operations, I'm going to go to our maintenance module, room maintenance. Okay, and John is in room 101. And I actually have an old item in there, so let me just get rid of that. Okay, so John is checking out on April 15th. So he is in there stay 7 of 8, so he's checking out in a few days. I can schedule for the 15th. I'll put that for 2 days. We'll assign it to maintenance. Broken toilets. Or maybe we're planning to replace carpet. And take room out of service. So I can schedule this to go out of order for when the guest departs. So what happens is when John Wick checks out on the 15th, this room will automatically go to out of order and won't be sold for that night. Now, the defect that we've had is any guests that are departing today. So Mary Walsh is departing from room 114 today. If I went in and tried to put the room out of order today on the day of departure for the 13th, Roomkey actually wouldn't allow us to. So we've fixed that now that you can go in, because a lot of times you're going to find out, maybe Mary Walsh comes down in the morning before breakfast and says, hey, just so you know, I'm checking out today. The air conditioner broke last night. So a lot of times we find out that day that that room is going to be no good for tonight. We don't want to sell it for tonight. So before, I think a lot of people were making reservations to hold the room, then checking the SO, canceling the other room, and then taking the room out for us. So now, of course, if I go into Operations, Maintenance module, Maintenance, we'll go to room 114. I have an old item here. Let me just get rid of that. Okay, so room 114, we can indeed see the status is departing. I'm going to click on New, do the 13th to the 13th. Excuse me again, sorry about that, everyone. Okay, and I'm going to put broken toilet, let's say, take the room out of service. We'll click Save. And see how it went in, right? And if I go now to the tape chart, this is the best visual I can show you. For room 114, go to our legend here. We can see the dark gray means out of order, but we still have the in-house guest. So the nice thing is, as soon as Mary Walsh checks out, that room will automatically go out of order. And indeed, on our operations inventory calendar, for the 2 QNL, that room is now out of order, so it can't be sold for tonight again. Okay. Okay, so that is two of the little buggy things that we worked on. The last thing I'm going to point out to you is under System Configuration, Packages and Inclusions. Most of you, when you're creating a package, you will select a rate category for that package. Rate categories are primarily used for how we organize things on eRes, on our online booking engine. We did find a problem where if people were not assigning the category, it was actually causing no rates to show up during a promo period with our online promotions. If you did an online promotion with the package, it wasn't working. So we've made it now that the category is now going to be mandatory. If you try to create a package and you have not assigned a rate category, it's going to ask you to assign a rate category. So small change. Most of you are probably already adding the categories when you're creating the package, so not a change for you, but just know that if you try to create it, it's going to remind you that indeed you have to put that on. And that is it for the overview of what we did the past few weeks for development. So like I said, tomorrow the release is going to come out. Should be around 11 a.m. Pacific time. We'll be sending out the release notes to everyone that will show the step-by-step screenshots on how to use some of the new functionality. We'll also put this up on our website, roomkeypms.com, where we'll have all the release notes there. And you'll see, if you go there now on our support page, that all the release notes from the past are in there as well. So we leave those up for you. So at this point, I'm going to open up the floor for any question and answer. If you don't have any questions, you're happy with what you've seen, you can certainly feel free to dismiss yourself. I do appreciate you taking the time to attend this webinar, and hopefully you found it useful. I'm going to go to the question area now. So one of the questions is, how is the commission calculated? And I believe that's probably relating to the so these corporate statistics by date range, the sales agent commission sheet. We don't actually have an area for commission. This is really just giving you, as the property, it's just giving you the data to say, okay, Bryn T, this is how much revenue he brought in during that period, and then you would, of course, work out whatever percentage or commission that you pay out to that clerk. It may be something down the road that we put in where you can actually put in a commission amount, so Roomkey does the math for you, but at this point it's just giving you the data of how much they produced during that period. The next question is, should you change the time of the out of service if you do what happens? So if we go back into maintenance module, room maintenance, if I were to click new, click on the drop down, we have the time in here. Now why Roomkey defaults this to midnight? Essentially when we're taking a room out of service, Roomkey says, okay, from midnight to midnight, this room cannot be sold, so that's why it defaults to midnight. If you were to change this time, it doesn't actually do anything as far as the function goes, as far as taking the room out of service. Really, the only thing this time thing does, on the report that you print out, you can put the time in, and it's more an informational thing for your maintenance people. So the example that I would probably throw out there would be, let's say that the room was currently occupied by a guest, and the guest came down, it's stay 7 of 8, they came down and said, hey, my light bulb is burnt out in my bedside lamp, can you have that replaced tomorrow? I sleep in, so please don't have them come into my room till 1 p.m. or something like that. So what I can do is, for the 14th, I can schedule this to happen at 1 p.m. So this is my way of telling the maintenance guide this is the best time for you to go into the room. 1:15 to 1 or 1 o'clock to 1:15, whatever, to replace the light bulb. So assign to maintenance. Oops. Maintenance. Or you can put the maintenance person name in there as well. Maybe easier. So we'll say replace light bulb in bedside lamp. And click Save. And then when you print out the report, you're going to see that the time does not show up on the report anymore. So everything that I just talked about, I was incorrect about. So let me reconfirm on the time and what exactly that does, and I will have to get back to you on that. Should all properties that use room key expect full functionality of new release tomorrow? Yes. So yes, if you download the new version after 11 a.m., the report should be there indeed. Sorry, I'm just going through the questions and seeing which ones are relevant for everyone. Stand by. Okay, and there is 2 other questions, but they're more related, I think, to those properties. So I will follow up directly. Can this report be run for more than 30 days at a time? Tina, if you're still on the line, was that if it was the forecast, occupancy and revenue forecast, which I think it was, yes, you can run it for longer length of time. Okay, perfect. Just know, I mean, the longer you run it for, obviously, the longer it can take. But if I run this, you're probably going to be looking at it for the rest of the year. You're going to get this status bar. So I just ran it for the rest of the year. Now know that I don't have a lot of data in my test hotel, so it didn't take quite as long. But you can run it for a longer length of time. And we've actually put it in that it's going to subtotal on the month as well. So if you run it for, say you ran it for the next year, then obviously you want to see the subtotal down at the end of the month, right? That's probably what you're going to be looking at most likely, right? And same thing for historical as well. Yes, you can run it for any length of times as well. And then another question was, can you see the historical information for group versus transient? So yeah, the same. So this report, the forecast, occupancy and revenue forecast, transient versus group, the exact same report, except for going backwards, is the occupancy and revenue actual, transient versus group. And this was actually released last release. So if you're not seeing this in your current room key, you might be behind another version. So this version that we're currently on today is 8.13. Tomorrow we're going to be on 8.14. The way you see your version, if you go into Help and go, About, that's where you're going to see your version. So tomorrow it will be 8.14, build 0.1. This 21 is our beta test, multiple versions we did through testing, but that's what you're going to see. And again, you can run that for any length of time as well, going backwards. So one of the questions, or one of the comments we made, I'm just going to try to address here. So if I go to room maintenance, and if I were to go to room 103, and if a room was being taken out of order for the 15th and the 16th, that means that that room is not going to be for sale until the 17th. So this end date includes that full day. So even if you were to put 9 a.m. in this, again, the time is not going to affect the function. It's not going to do anything at this point that I can see it. I do believe it used to show in the report. I'm not sure why it's not showing on the report, but I can tell you that previously that time, it was a informational thing. It was more for the information of the maintenance person for the time. It looks like that's been taken off the report. I don't know if that was hindsight or what happened there. But as far as the function goes, so if you were going to have a room coming back in on the 16th at 9 a.m., I would still only take this room out of order for the 15th to the 15th. That means that it won't be sold on the 15th. Technically, after your rollover time at wherever time you have the rollover time set for, the room is going to go dirty, right, on the 16th in the morning, and then housekeeping would have to go in, clean that room. So if maintenance is not going to be done until 9 a.m. on the 16th, the room is still going to be showing as dirty. So you wouldn't be able to check anyone into that room anyways. But if you're not going to have the room go back, you can't, this function's not going to work that I set this for the 16th at 9 a.m. It doesn't function that way. It's basically that I would take it out for the 15th to 15th, and if it's coming back on the 16th, we would leave it in dirty status. Say maintenance was working in there till 9 a.m., we'd leave it dirty till 9 a.m. Housekeeping goes in, does their thing, by 9:30 it's ready to go. So I think it's the way that you're setting that up for. You would want to do it for the day before, because this is inclusive of this end date. So hopefully that helped answer the question. And again, I will do some more research into that time and see, did we take that off of the report for some reason. I think I did see one more. Oh yeah, someone asked about the time. So again, the time on there does nothing. Okay, so I don't see any more questions in there. There's one more question that someone asked, but I feel it's more specific to their property. So I will address that directly with them. But otherwise, thanks everyone for attending. Hopefully that was useful for you. And stay tuned for the notes tomorrow. Hope you all like what we did in the release. Have yourselves a great day.